Hey folks, welcome into the BN Cubs podcast. I am Brett Taylor. That is Michael Cerami. We are going to talk Cubs thanks to our generous sponsors at Ankin Law, 3126 million, injury law made personal. So, Michael, we just passed the halfway mark on the 2025 Chicago Cubs season. And that means the Cubs get to, you know what? I was going to make a joke about the first half flag. If this were the minor leagues, they actually do have that. You win the first half, and that locks you into a playoff spot if you win the first half. They do that, of course, because rosters change so much in the minor leagues, less so in the bigs. But if that were a thing, the Cubs they won the first half. Hooray.
Yeah.
Flags fly forever.
What do they have, 48 wins? No, all jokes aside, though, I kind of do like to think about
48
it.
48 and 33.
So do that again, and you're a 96-win team, and we're pretty happy about that. That would be the best since 2016, right? Because they won 95 in 2018
and lost they had an extra chance too to win another game.
Yeah, right.
And did not win it.
So pretty good.
So
do it again.
Well, and it would be the first like real division win since 2017.
Oh God.
Because, they won the division in 2020, but the season was not real. Think about it that way. The Cubs have not really won the NL Central in 8 years.
That's brutal. I don't want to think about that.
I know. So that's not good. So hopefully they can continue. And I think we'll get back to some of the first half stuff, but I think this will tee it up. So the Cubs closed out the first half with 4 games in St. Louis this week. Their first time playing the Cardinals this season. Took until the end of June for the Cubs to play the Cardinals, which I think has an impact on the way I'm thinking about the first half in terms of like the Cubs leading the Central. It hasn't felt like much of a NL Central battle, right? Because they've sort of barely they played the Brewers a bit, but they played the Pirates a bit. It just, I don't know. It hasn't felt like, now part of that's that the schedule has become increasingly balanced over the last 15 years. So you're not playing each of those NL Central teams as much as you used to, but still, it just kind of feels like the Cubs have been playing their own race this first half.
But you know what else it is, though? You know what else it is? I think it's because maybe this is overconfidence too, but I started focusing in on when they had like the 5 or 6 game lead in the division for like a week and a half ago or whatever. I was like, okay, so now the only thing that matters is the first or second seed. So we're not even playing the NL Central. Like we're only worried about the Dodgers.
When are we allowed to think about that? Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? So that's why I was like, the race to me wasn't even the end. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, the Reds in 4th place were only 4 games out. I was like, hold on a second. But that's why the Cardinal series, what a vibe shift from after the second game to after the 4th game. I mean, it's what you always talk about in reverse. If that went the other way, we'd be miserable right now. But because it went loss, then win with Shota coming back and looking great, it was like I feel version. Fine.
Yeah. I think, and some of that is just randomness, and then we create a story, right, to live around the randomness. Mm-hmm. But some of it, I think, this is a very good team. This Cubs team is a very good team. I think Cardinals are not a great team, but set that aside. And the Cubs are coming off a stretch of 2+ weeks where they've not played very well. They've not played very well, and they haven't really gotten the bounces, metaphorically speaking. And some of the games could have flipped throughout that stretch. And so because of that, you're maybe statistically a little more likely to then win some games at the end of a stretch like that, right? Every losing streak is necessarily bookended by wins. And so I think
that was beautiful. Every losing streak is bookended by wins. Put it on a sign, put it in my mom's kitchen.
I know it's a t-shirt. I came up with that many, many years ago. It wasn't even supposed to be like a life thing. It was just in thinking about every losing streak, by definition, you've got to have a win on each end of it.
I like that.
Yeah, I should remember that. So
no, but you know what else too, though? During that losing streak, there was PCA forgetting how many outs. There were Seiya Suzuki making 2 errors in right field. there was just like some kind of listen, we were all like prepared for Ben Brown to not be great, but then it got worse. And then Jameson Taillon was like, listen, he didn't need to be the guy he had been all year, which was like fantastic. But then he had like 2 consecutive like absolute blowouts. And it was just like, there was a lot going wrong. Colin Ray did too. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Like, there wasn't like a blown save mixed in there, I don't think. But it was just a lot of things going wrong at the wrong time. I kind of am thrilled that the Brewers series had that rain out because just didn't feel like it was going to be going our way. And it was Mizurowski or whatever his name is, who's just like on another level right now, which is
he's outdueled Paul Skeens.
Yeah, I mean, that was fortunate.
How do you pitch against Paul Skeens right now and look like the better pitcher?
I literally saw the game on the schedule and I was like, oh, great. At least the Pirates have Skeens going, so the Brewers will lose. I was like, oh, like, nope, not at all. And I'm so sick of Milwaukee. And then the Cardinals having their, I mean, I in a way, I was like kind of happy that Wilson Contreras got all pissed yesterday. Because it was like, all right, let's get a little fire back here because it doesn't feel like I don't even care about, like, I have not had the need to care about the Cardinals the way we have with the Brewers for the last 10 years. Like they just 10 years. Hasn't been
it's been
thing.
A long, they have not both.
It really was
good.
2015.
Dude, Hector, he finished the rivalry for a decade.
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't both been good and competitive, really, in the second half of a season at the same time in a decade.
Yeah.
It just hasn't happened.
I know. It doesn't feel like anything.
And credit to the Brewers because for many of those seasons, they've just kind of pushed the other teams to the side in the division. So, circling back then to the first half, the Cubs, by virtue of those 2 wins, closed it out 3 games up. In the NL Central, closed it out. See, I'm still talking about the first half as though it's not this imaginary thing. They're up 3 games in the Central, and like you said, 48 wins, which translates to 96 if it were over a full season. I didn't even think I need to ask the question. If you knew in March this is what the first half was going to look like, are you taking it? Here's a question. Let me make it a little more challenging. Let's say you knew the Cubs were going to win 48 games. But I also told you Justin Steele was going to be lost for the year and Shota was going to miss a month and a half. And who knows what that might mean for his health. And Porter Hodge was going to have an ERA north of 5 and Ryan Presley was going to lose the closer job almost immediately. And so, I mean, like if I told you all the individual things that are challenging.
Now that you say that, actually, I'm like even more impressed. Now that if you were to tell me that, I'd be like, okay, so what does PCA have like 23 homers? Like, what do you? It's like, yeah, actually,
exactly. That's the thing. Whatever it is. I'm not saying that Kyle Tucker has been Kyle Tucker, and PCA has broken out to be in the MVP conversation, and the Cubs catchers have combined for like a 130 weighted runs created plus.
It is hilarious that Reese McGuire is hitting the ball so well.
All you got to do is become a Cubs catcher in 2025, and you will hit. When Dansby Swanson starts slumping, just move him behind the plate for a few games and he will break back out.
No, how can you do? He has to bat 5th, so
he has to bat 5th.
Must.
You can change his position, but he has to bat 5th.
Oh, you're right. You could change the position. Right. Duh.
No, I did find that funny this week. Swanson actually he was hitting above average in June. Did you? I didn't realize that until I looked at his numbers. And the explanation for why it very much doesn't feel like that is because it's been entirely the product of bases empty, killing it. Anybody on base, no production whatsoever. So that, of course, stands out more in our memory. And Craig Counsell explained the batting order thing, that he likes having a guy who can hit home runs in that spot that's breaking up the 2 lefties. Okay, but Nico Hoerner's been a better hitter overall. So what exactly are you doing? Even if you feel like you have to put someone there at 5 between PCA and Bush, it doesn't have to be Swanson. But I don't know. It's nitpicky enough. Well, let me have my cake and eat it too.
No, linger on it for a second. I mean, this is a pretty good. I want to talk about
his numbers. His numbers are so bad this year with runners in scoring position.
How bad are they?
Yeah, it's like a 27 weighted runs created plus. I mean, it's something egregiously bad. Okay, egregiously bad. And then you combine that with the fact that when he's hitting above the 7 spot, so 6 and above, it's like a 65 weighted runs created plus. He's terrible. Now, and it's in approaching 300 plate appearances at that. Okay, but when he's hit 7, 8, 9, raking. Now that one's under sub 100 plate appearances. It's really the product of one stretch where, if you remember earlier this year, he got moved down and then he immediately got super hot, hitting 8.
I have a theory about that.
Back up. Well, so let me set you up.
Let
me set you up to pass upon it. Do we believe that a 31-year-old veteran like Dansby Swanson suddenly in this lineup can't hit 5? Like that there's some signal to it? And I'll pass it to you to answer that in a way, because at some point the numbers do get large enough where it's sort of, it does make you wonder if just sort of the calibration of this lineup doesn't work for him to hit in that spot.
Yeah. I mean, so to answer your question directly, I will say no in the way you presented it, but I will also, this is not even the broader point I'm going to make, but I will say as an inside tiny point, it's kind of like if you moved a reliever to the 9th inning, it's not the same thing, but if you did, and it's like, what, he can't pitch in the 9th inning as a closer, but he could do it in the, it's like, I understand that there's numbers that suggest he should just pitch the same all the time, but they're all people and it's not the same always. You know what I mean? There's different mentalities. How many times has someone moved into leadoff or cleanup, which, have these names associated with it, and they change who they are? It just does happen, but that's not the point I was going to make. Here was my okay, maybe there's actually something to this point. I think I would have to talk to like a real big league pitcher or catcher or pitching coach to say for them to tell me oh, maybe there's something to that, or no, you're crazy. But hear me out. You're batting 7th, 8th, or 9th, right? Or you're batting 4th, 5th, depending on if there's a lefty. Sometimes he even bats cleanup, right? Swanson does. If you're the opposing starting pitcher, might you commit to memory or commit to your plan of attack more detailed information on the hitters you're expecting to face more frequently by virtue of them batting at the top of the order, or you're more focused on, it's like, okay, I got to get through PCA and Tucker and Suzuki, or Happ, Tucker and Swanson. But then he's batting 7th or 8th or 9th. You're like, okay, today I got to worry about those guys and Michael Busch, because I might not even get Swanson a third time. Not what I'm focusing on. And so is it possible that just by virtue of batting lower, the difference is just that the pitcher isn't keyed up on him because it was less important to prepare for Swanson specifically than it is to prepare for someone batting, 1 through 4, 1 through 5.
I think that is a fantastic theory. I'm going to say one thing in support of it and one thing that counters it. So in addition to the way you framed it, in terms of pitcher prep and thinking, well, I might face these guys 3 times and they're the dangerous guys too. And I might face these guys twice. And I think there might be something there. Also, just to keep in mind, pitchers wear down. They physically wear down throughout a game. And so if you are hitting in the bottom third of the lineup, you are definitionally going to see that pitcher after he has already thrown 30, 40 pitches and then 60, 70 pitches. And so he may just not quite be as sharp. Even if he's only seeing you for the second time, he may just be wearing down a little bit. So I think there's probably something to that. And I had not considered that. So this is glad we had this conversation. I suppose the counter to that though is if the starter, let's say, goes 2.5 times through the order, right? So he faces the big time guys 3 times and then leaves. Well, then that means Swanson's third is not against a wearing down starting pitcher like everyone else gets. Reliever. It's against a reliever who might be, cranking it to 95.
Yeah. But I wonder too, if you're getting to Swanson and it's for his third at bat, it's the 5th inning or 6th inning and it's the bottom of the order and you're not getting their top reliever. Like it's very unlikely, right? Because for those,
in fact, you might try to push the starter to get through one more inning.
Exactly. So. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that there's probably something to that, and I don't know for sure. And again, you might talk to a pitcher, be like, "What are you talking about? Like, we have the plan for everyone. Like, you're wrong. Like, it's possible." But
they adjust
I don't
throughout
know.
a start too. But I think
pitching coaches can make mound visits and tell them, "Hey, here's what you want to do for this guy." Like, but just something.
Here's what he was
to think about.
Sitting on the first 2 times, and I mean, absolutely. But I think that this is a meritorious discussion. The longer it goes, where we see continued struggles hitting a certain area of the batting order and continued struggles with runners on base and in scoring position. That's another one where we, over the life of a player, it tends to even out, right? Where guys are generally hitting in all situations roughly the same. But what we do see for some guys, and I don't know that it varies year to year. Again, it's usually over a large sample of a full guy's career, that they're maybe just a little bit worse in those high leverage situations, or a little bit better, because most guys hit better with runners on base because of defensive positionings and stress on the pitcher. And I don't know that that's going to like suddenly become an issue for a 10-year veteran like Swanson.
And that was the root of your point too, right? I don't think that part of it means anything. I don't think Dansby Swanson is not rising to the moment or anything like that. I think it's more so to do with where he's batting, who he's batting. I mean, I don't want to say it's not about lineup protection, just like again, where he is in the order and how pitchers are attacking him. But I think this is, you're right. If anything, exactly. I do think this is like a tiny opportunity. I don't even have any thoughts on it, but I want to hear it from you. One of the big reasons Swanson is batting there, this is like a 2-parter for you. I'm just going to tee it up. Is because they have to break up the lefties in theory, Bush and PCA, and I get that. And I did appreciate Council's point that it almost ensures that Swanson might get an at-bat versus a lefty, which whatever, his stats against lefties are better, but like slightly, not that, or like it's not like that.
He's not a lefty. He's not a lefty killer. Yeah.
No, if he was, I would understand, but it's just a little bit better. Anyway, all that aside, would you, against a righty starter, this is a 2-parter, and you could go any way you want. Would you, because I would you, against a right-handed starting pitcher, just bat Michael Bush, who is destroying right-handers, 5th behind PCA, and let the chips fall as they may, or however that saying goes. And separately, this seems frankly like a combination impetus to get a right-handed bat at the trade deadline, probably someone who can take over for Matt Shaw realistically at third base, and then take over for Swanson as the righty that separates PCA and Bush. Like there's 2 needs, and you're kind of killing both birds with one stone by doing that. So do either of those things, I mean, you could go with either one you want or both, but I'm curious what you would do near term for the lineup and then medium term for the trade deadline if you actually think they should acquire a right-handed bat.
Right. And if I were going to make a change at all, like that's the thing is I'm not even necessarily criticizing Craig Counsell for this decision. It's more of just saying, are you correct that it's working out? And I think that because Nico Horner is right there, who for his career, again, maybe there's signal, maybe there's not, is quite good with runners in scoring position. And no, he doesn't have power, but I just don't know how much you're losing by trading for a contact guy hitting behind PCA, who's maybe less likely to be a double play candidate because he'll steal second quite frequently. Healthy leads can take the extra base on a single. Like PCA is not necessarily a guy that you need power hitting behind in order for him to score, right?
Dude, that is a great point. I love that.
So I can see pretty good reason to just swap out Nico and Dansby. Have Dansby at 7.
So you would do that before moving Bush up, you're saying?
and stacking the lefties. I can see the virtue there, because if you're going to have a righty starter in there, you're likely to get the benefit of having them hitting back to back. Like, it's actually a good thing to have them hit back to back against a righty starter, maybe twice in the game.
Yeah, at least twice, right?
Right. But, I don't disagree with the point that you make it easier on the opposing manager, especially with Tucker hitting second. I mean, your dream scenario, right, is you bring in the lefty to go 2, 3, 4, 5.
In theory, but Tucker and Suzuki both destroy lefties. Not even a
I think
little
Tucker
bit. Suzuki's.
I was going to say, especially this year, Tucker's hitting lefties really well, I think.
Especially this year. And Suzuki, I think he's still at north of 200 or something. I got to look it up against lefties. And honestly, his production against righties is far lower. So I actually, if that was not the case, I would agree with you for sure. But it's really down to PCA and Bush. Anyway.
Yeah.
And then what about trading for someone?
Yeah.
Do you think that's like
to close the near term one? I wouldn't feel strongly enough about avoiding stacking the lefties to argue with, if you got in Craig's ear and you're like, you know what, I think there's actually a good benefit to have PCA and Bush hitting back to back. That would be fine with me. I would then the question is, do you flip Dansby and Nico anyway thereafter? But then we're picking nits. But either way, I would be happier with a move, either stacking the lefties or flipping Nico and Dansby, than leaving it as is. Not because I think it's like disastrous right now or guaranteed to continue being an issue. It's just, I just don't really see the harm in making that change. Longer term, I mean, we've talked about it. Eugenio Suarez, if his wrist is fine, is as perfect as a positional acquisition was ever going to be for this team. I mean, he's a rental third baseman who plays solid defense there, is a righty power bat. Boom. I mean, it's just exactly what you need. And
then he can't hurt us anymore.
I know that too. Hey, maybe he just rakes at Wrigley Field. Just sees the ball really well at Wrigley.
But it is hilarious to get Candelario and then Paredes and then Suarez in back-to-back seasons. Like, what?
Maybe that's the idea. Is just keep trading
next.
Yeah. And, and Matt Shaw, he is obviously looking ready and capable defensively at third base.
Yeah,
I don't think that's even, nobody's been asking that anymore, right? Even though that was the question. No. I think offensively, it's just, he is not, what he's experiencing, these really dramatic up and downs at the big league level, is not uncommon at all.
No,
see, the Mets just had to option Francisco Alvarez back to the minors, and he was like uber prospect who seemed like he had established himself, and then the struggles came. Like, the game is just, this is how it is right now for the big time young players. Look at PCA, who was, there were stretches where it was like, oh, is he ever going to be able to hit in the big leagues? Now, we wouldn't have said that, because we would have said, we would have had the same conversation. Like, come on, this is just part of the adjustment process. And then he can adjust and break out. And so, like, anything the Cubs do at third base this year is just simply not remotely reflective of their thoughts about Matt Shaw going forward. And so, knowing that, I just would strongly endorse trading for Suarez. Like,
exactly. And
strongly.
I think what's nice too is that, a couple things. One, you can first of all, I completely agree. I think look at PCA, look at Miguel Amaya. We could be a July 4th benching and slight swing adjustment away from the second half that either of those guys had, and Matt Shaw has just as much, like theoretical upside, whatever. Hit the ball a couple he hit the ball hard a few times yesterday too against the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So in the finale. So, there's stuff there. The defense and the base running's all great. All that's awesome. You trade for Suarez. Again, you get to replace Shaw's bat. You get to move Swanson down. You're adding a big bat in general. It just makes sense for a lot of reasons. What I think I like about it though, is that you can, in the near term, have Shaw possibly go back to Iowa and continue refining his approach. Or this is like an or either now or later in the season, you have Matt Shaw as a wonderful player to have available off the bench.
Oh,
Like,
what a great bench player for September that he is. Oh,
yes. And I don't,
perfect.
Think about just trying to win this year. Of course you want Matt Shaw available as a pinch runner, as a defensive replacement, as a pinch hitter for whatever, Reese McGuire comes up and there's a lefty and you rather have Matt Shaw. Like, I don't know. It's just, I can see the benefit of him replacing. I'm not going to any of the bench players because the Cubs bench is nothing right now.
Let's hammer that, because I think that that's a great point, that making the move at third base, the trickle effect is that it could improve a bench that is currently a 0.
They basically don't play even.
Yeah, they don't. I'm not trying to take shots at the individual players who I'm sure are great in the clubhouse. They're trying very hard when they have opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. But right now, the Cubs are getting 0 contribution from the bench. 0. Which also is another reason why, like, when people are like, they see Reese McGuire hitting and they're like, uh-oh, and Miguel Amaya might be back in 2 weeks. What are they going to do? I'm like, don't worry about that because things happen, but also don't worry about it because if there was ever a team in history that could carry 3 catchers, it's this one. Because
wouldn't
what the
you?
F? They're not doing anything otherwise with those roster spots. So
no. And why would you care if Reese McGuire was sitting too? Like, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, who cares? I completely agree. A totally different team too than 2016 for all the things that we try to like that team was like constantly using every day. The lineup was a combination of bench players and starters at different positions. And it was like, who's Joe Madden going to play today? Right now, it's like there is one change that happens every day. There's 2. It's who the catch. My lineup posts are so boring. It's who the catcher is, which is you could easily guess ahead of time, and then who's DHing between Hap, Suzuki, and Tucker that day, and that's it. There's nothing else. Nothing else happens. And then
if the Cubs face a lefty, Justin Turner might play first base. If
I know, but like, and that just is like, okay, and he's not doing anything either.
All right, let's leave that so that we have time to mention the rotation and then go to the game.
Okay.
So can't leave this without mentioning welcome back, Shota. It was so good to see him in action against the Cardinals in the Valley. Not only, I think there's multiple distinct reasons why it was so good. The obvious one being he pitched well, and you want that guy back in your rotation because they needed another stabilizing force in the rotation. I think 2, I had forgotten is the wrong word, but like, I think sometimes I don't appreciate that Imanaga is such a great combination of good stuff, but also such a sophisticated pitching approach where you can sort of see he's never giving in to guys. Like, he makes mistake pitches like everyone does, but like, you can just sort of see that the execution is at such a high level. It reminds me of watching Javier Assad pitch, where Assad doesn't have Imanaga's stuff, but a big part of the reason Assad has been so successful in the big leagues is because he executes his pitches so well, by which I mean he's locating them very well. He's able to change his pitches easily. He's got all of them available pretty much every day. He can locate all of his pitches to all quadrants of the zone. He can use waste pitches very well. Just feels like he's never giving in. And I like watching a pitcher do that. And I think Imanaga, in addition to having good stuff, just does that very well. And I appreciate that as a fan of watching. And then the last reason it's so good to see him back is because of the effect that it has on the rotation as a whole. It gives the Cubs the option to, for example, which is what they elected to do, move out Ben Brown and give him a chance to continue working at Iowa and develop. And that could pay other benefits down the road. You know, they were when Imanaga was out, they got lucky because no one got hurt, but the Cubs were like against a wall when it came to the rotation. They really had no ability to make any kind of change if they wanted to. And now, especially with Jordan Wicks healthy again at Iowa, there's there's options if they want to, move guys around or if guys get hurt. Like I just having Imanaga back and healthy somehow elevates the entire group at MLB and at Iowa to make me feel better about the situation.
No, for sure. Now they have options. They also were lucky that the bullpen decided to turn into a beast.
Be the greatest unit in baseball.
Yeah. And I think, you send Brown out, you lose a little on upside, but you're gaining it all back on floor with Colin Ray for the time being. I don't think Colin Ray has the upside of Ben Brown. I don't think that's even an applicable statement. It's kind of just, of course.
Sure.
But I still think Colin Ray is like more likely to give you 5 innings of 3 or 4 runs than Ben Brown is, who will either give you 7 no-hit innings or
to put it another way,
8 runs.
You're less likely to get an implosion from Ray.
You're right. You're less likely to get an implosion. So that's good. And I think the stretch of a ton of games is easing up after this weekend. There's an off day, and then there's another off day or 2, and then the All-Star break. So like they might be able to get through this pretty easily, see where they are, after the break, and then plan. But at the same time, it's like Bruce Levine has been touting this rumor that there's going to be a trade. Like 3 weeks ago, he was like 2 to 3 weeks. And then beginning of this week, he was like, this week is possible. I know they've talked about a handful of guys like Mitch Keller of the Pirates and Merrill Kelly and Zach Gallen are like the other rumored guys, Sandy Alcantara, who I don't think will be traded until the deadline. I think if I were the Marlins, I would say I want him to make another 3 or 4 starts because every time he does this. Yeah. It's of course, even if it was just a normal year, you'd want to wait it out. But for him, with years of control remaining and him coming back and looking better every start, it seems pretty logical to me that you wait. So I don't know what they're going to do, but I would like a move sooner than later.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Cubs it's a spot that a lot of teams face when you're competitive, you're very likely to be in a playoff race. You have crystal clear, obvious needs. And then it's just a question of how much are we willing to overpay right now to get a guy early because the price tag is going to be higher. And 2, how much do we like the targets that are available now as compared to the ones that might be available in 3 weeks? And that actually
gets me going a lot because I don't know if there's a lot. Like I would love.
Yeah, we don't know.
In theory, go on.
I was just gonna say we don't know for sure who's like actually able to be moved right now.
Yeah. No, right. That's true. And
both because there are teams that aren't there are teams that aren't convicted that they're going to be sellers yet, so that's a factor. But then there's also, like you said with Alcantara, there might be teams that are convicted they're going to be sellers, but they're like, well, this guy's not available yet because we would like to roll the dice on him for a few more weeks to up the price.
Sorry, I'm laughing. I'm about to have one of those moments like on the news where my son's walking in just pantsless. Yeah. He's a baby for those. He's not like a fully grown pantsless human.
In fairness, I'm not wearing pants either, but that's this is a shoulders up podcast.
Yep. Yeah. No, for sure.
So anyway, I think that's where we're at. And I think it'll be interesting if the Cubs do get serious on anyone early and make a move early. Is that foreclosing the door on any other pitching additions by the deadline? I think I know what Jed would say. He'd say, I don't know, we'll see where we are at July, 29, 30, 31. But I do think you have to be careful balancing those two things of wanting to get a guy early because he can impact your team more when you need it versus closing yourself off from perhaps better options that could become available.
But if I were Brett Taylor writing an article, I would say you get that guy early because it provides you the security and leverage you need to ride out those trades later to say like, hey, we already got someone in the door. We got our bases covered a little bit. But I'm going to close that book and say, bring me David Bednar yesterday.
Oh, so much.
I mean, we kind of don't talk about it because Palencia has been good and Presley's looked a little bit better. They still should get another. Because
it doesn't matter.
Reliever.
Like, It just doesn't matter. You cannot, in a competitive year, have too many back end type relievers. Like, it just doesn't exist. Does not exist.
The playoffs?
Yeah. You could convince me that the Cubs like don't need to add any reliever just to add a reliever, because they do have exceptional depth still right now. Okay. But you're never in a million years going to talk me out in a competitive year of literally any team needing to add a back end reliever. Like, that does not exist. Does not exist. So yes. And we know Bednar's available. We know he's on an unbelievable heater right now. He fixed whatever was plaguing him last year and then early this year. He's a stud. And if the Cubs aren't having to pay some super aggressive in division tax, he's like just a top
give the Pirates money.
For,
if only they had anyone that was making any money that we could take, they'd probably do that in a second. All right, let's transition to the game, because we're running late here today. Okay, today's game, or this week's game, excuse me, is brought to you by Felco. Felco, the home renewal experts. Bleacher Nation is proud to partner with Felco. For almost 50 years, Felco has been transforming Chicagoland homes with their windows, siding, doors, and roofing. Felco is family-owned and prides themselves on delighting their customers. With products made in the U.S. and designed specifically for the Midwest, Felco offers a perfect balance of beauty and energy efficiency. So I have the game this week, and I came up with a new one. So, for example, yesterday at Bleacher Nation, I shouldn't say for example before describing the game. The game is going to be, Brett and I both came prepared with 3 theoretical headlines that we might see at Bleacher Nation this year. And it's not supposed to be like hot takes or just crazy, like PCA becomes the first guy to hit 100 home runs. Like, no, I mean, like, what is an actual headline you think you'll see at Bleacher Nation this year? And we both came up with 3 before today, so this wasn't a surprise game, but we don't know what each other's headlines are, so that's how we're going to get into talking about it. So I think we could trade back and forth and kind of just see where it goes. So do you want to lead off with the first fake headline that you think we could see this year at Bleacher Nation?
I appreciate you letting me go first, because it's one that you might, sorry if you have to craft another one on the fly, but okay. And this is like a real headline that I might write. I did it, I wrote it out like I would. Okay. The obsessive watch is over. Chicago Cubs acquire Sandy Alcantara.
Nice. I did not do that one, for what it's worth.
Okay. So there's, I think they're going to acquire some starting pitcher. And among the ones that we have seen discussed, certainly that would be my most preferred target there at the deadline. And it's funny, you raised the point that if you're the Marlins, you're just going to wait because he keeps getting better and better. And I kind of thought that too. As much as we might want the Cubs to acquire him earlier, I think they're probably going to take it to the deadline. And so I could see it becoming one of those situations where for a week it's like obsessive Sandy Alcantara watch, da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah. I think that's right. I think in a lot of ways, I think Alcantara makes a lot of sense for the Cubs. I don't mean like, oh, he fits. I mean, like, being a hard throwing right-hander is a good thing for the Cubs rotation to mix in some differences between Shota and Matthew Boyd, who right now are your other 2 top starters. He also comes with more control after the season as well. Which I think kind of tracks with next year also looking like it could be a pretty good season for the Cubs. So I think you're going to want that too. So I think that Jed might be a little bit more willing to get a guy like that. And then lastly, because the Cubs and Marlins talked Jesus Luzardo and Owen Casey, and Owen Casey's having a nice year and stuff. I think it's just a lot of the chips, or a lot of the stars are aligning for that sort of trade. So I'm not optimistic. Any one trade between 2 teams for one player is incredibly unlikely.
A low probability event. Yeah.
Right. But if you shrunk it down to just those things anyway. All right. Here's my first one. And I went bolder with it. But I almost flipped this for what it's worth. Cubs announced Jamison Tyone, not Cade Horton, will start game 4 of the NLDS.
Oh, that's fun. I like that it implies, I like imagining the world where it was like, we're wondering, oh, who's going to get game 4? Oh, no, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So why, because what are you imagining is the justification, for why is it happening?
Yeah. So this is what I think is going to happen is the Cubs are going to acquire a starter who's like, it's going to be, if everyone's healthy, Shota, that starter, and Matthew Boyd are getting games 1, 2, and 3, right? Like that's likely to be what they're hoping occurs. And then what I think is going to happen is Cade Horton is going to outpitch Jameson Taillon in August and September and look like the clearly better starter, but he's going to be at a very high inning count and a rookie who doesn't have experience. And so Craig Counsell is going to say, we're going with experience and Jameson Taillon, he's the guy and he's going to get it. And we're going to be like, this is like, we understand the reasons for XYZ, but Horton has had the better results in the second half of it's going to be that Horton looks like the guy, but they go with Taillon. And I thought that might be a headline that we actually discuss, like when they're announcing the rotation, like, man, they went with Taillon, not Cade Horton. Okay.
Well, and don't forget the lineup the Cubs are facing is very lefty heavy, and Taillon's kick change this year has really been effective against lefties. It's particularly in August and September. We saw that it really took over. So,
yeah.
Okay. Here's one. With Cubs securing NL Central crown, Jed Hoyer and Carter Hawkins get new 3-year deals.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Now, let me make clear that isn't how I would do things if I had my druthers on this, and I've discussed this before. I think ahead of trade season, I would just go ahead and do the deal. I would get Jed and Carter to the extent that you need them lined up, inked to a new deal. I just would rather have him have that security ahead of making really important long-term trade decisions for the organization. And it's going to happen anyway, like barring, and I understand, Tom Ricketts might respond, well, but if we collapse in the second half and it looks like there were decisions that were poor, I want to be able to move on. I get it. Fine, maybe. But I think what's more likely to happen is the Cubs are going to lock up the division, and at some time down the stretch, we're going to see, yep, there's a new deal in place.
You just made me think of something, though. Ricketts needs to give Hoyer an extension, but does Hoyer then extend Carter Hawkins?
I mean, I think it's probably less. I mean, yes, it probably does work that way, but I imagine there's ownership level conversations for someone that high.
But theoretically, Jed Hoyer has
it's probably Jed and Tom. Yeah, but Jed and Tom probably then coordinate on hey, do you want to line it up? I mean, I don't know. For all we know, Jed's gonna be like, actually, I want a different GM. I mean, we don't know.
Or Tom's gonna want Carter to be the president.
To take over.
Oh my, that would be a headline. Like an absolute like a coup
Palace
at
intrigue.
Cubs.
Yeah.
Coup
at 1060 West Addison.
There you go. This one's pretty straightforward. It's not as exciting as my first one, but I think this is going to happen. I feel pretty good about this. Cubs acquire Eugenio Suarez from the Arizona Diamondbacks. Like breaking, Cubs acquire. I just think that's going to be the headline. I think they're going to get him, and I think he's going to play third base for the Cubs this year. I mean, that's a little bit of a hot take, obviously, again, for all the things, but.
Sure. Well, and the biggest one is that there's probably 10 other teams that are going to want him, assuming the Diamondbacks sell, that he will be very highly sought after. And so to bank on the Cubs being the team that definitely gets him just because the need and the fit are so super obviously strong. I think, I think you're right to say it's bold to say that it's going to happen. I sure hope it does. Yeah. I hope you're right. For my last one, I went with one I wanted one that was a little out of the box to surprise people, but I have an explanation for it. So this is late in the year. This will be around November. Cubs signed Justin Steele to a 2-year deal with a team option for the 3rd year. Explanation there being, so we know Justin has 2 more arbitration years, and certainly the Cubs aren't going to non-tender him just because he's rehabbing. But sometimes in those situations, when a guy's coming back, you will see deals done to cover both arb years so that the player gets that certainty of whatever it would be for him, 25 million or whatever, to ensure he gets that chunk if he comes back and something's not right or whatever. And in exchange, the Cubs get what they would want is that 1 extra year at a team option of control when he's, 32, 33, whatever. I think that's their dream scenario. And if you get the numbers right, I think that could be a really good fit.
Wow. I think that I wasn't thinking that at all. And now that you lay it out like that, I'm like, that makes perfect sense. I think that's a great idea, actually. And probably for all sides. We knew that there was like some, interest in those two, Justin Steele and the Cubs, talking about an extension over the offseason, that nothing really came together for a lot of obvious reasons. But the fundamental circumstances have changed so dramatically now that he's, gotten hurt. So, all right, my last one, I'm stopping short of big, but I think this is still awesome. And then I have a couple of interesting stats too. Pete Crow-Armstrong just became the second player in Cubs history to post a 30-30 season. Only one other player has done it, but he's done it twice. Sammy Sosa in 93 and 95. In 93, he hit 33 homers and stole 36 bases. In 95, he hit 36 homers and stole 34 bases. Zips projects PCA to end up with 34 homers and 43 stolen bases, so to come a little short of 40-40. But he's on pace for like 42 to 44 home runs and 46 to 48 stolen bases. That's not
Can I ask you, works. When is that headline dropping?
Oh, that's good. I mean, like September 20th. Oh, well, no.
So you think,
yeah, I see what you're saying.
Because he's already at, let's see, I think
21 and 24.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's potentially a early August headline.
Yeah, it's really going to be the homers. I mean, is he just going to keep hitting homers like he's?
I know the pace is pretty remarkable.
I'm sure he'll keep stealing bases. Like that, I'm not concerned about. I think he will end up with over 40 stolen bases, but I don't think he's going to end up with over 40 home runs.
The math there, I think, is harder to just say, double whatever he's at right now.
Well, and you could even do less than that, because the first 3 weeks he didn't hit any home runs.
Sure.
Yeah, it was even a shorter window.
Pace.
You're right.
And I think, it isn't to disparage his power, which is very real. He's very opportunistic in his hitting sometimes to hit for slug, which I love. But yeah, I think, just like I wouldn't say Cal Raleigh is going to hit 60 home runs this year just because he's on pace for that. No, it's good. And 30-30, like you said, that'd still be quite historic in Cubs.
Literally no one else has done it besides Sammy Sosa. And I was surprised. Like Sandberg has years where he's been way over on one or the other, but to line it up in the same season is pretty rare.
Yeah, I was surprised that I'd forgotten that Alfonso Soriano in that first year with the Cubs, he only stole 19 bases.
Yeah, he went 40-40 the year before with the Nationals, I think.
The year before. He did.
And then he stopped stealing bases, but then he had a lot of homers.
40-40, by the way, is like historically rare in baseball. Like we kind of forget because Shohei did the first 50-50. But 40-40, there's only like 7 ever. I mean, it's extremely rare. So even that, I hope PCA's chasing it a little bit in September, just because I think it would be fun. To chart those, every night. Good game. That was a good game.
Yeah, why not?
All right. Wow, we went long in this one. Yeah. Sorry / you're welcome, folks. This is the BN Cubs podcast. I'm Brett Taylor. That's Michael Cerami. You get our work at Bleacher Nation, and you can rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends about the pod. We appreciate you very much, just like we appreciate our sponsors at Ankin Law, 312-6 million, injury law made personal. Thanks to everyone for listening, and we will talk to you next week.